Hey everyone, I'm Solomon Royal, and today we're reframing one of the most misunderstood elements of modern astrology, retrogrades. They're often treated like cosmic glitches, delays, malfunctions, but that view misses the deeper reality. This video is about what retrogrades really are, why they're more intimate than we've been led to believe, and how to work with their energy instead of fearing it. So if you've been feeling stuck, looping back through the past, or rethinking your direction, this might be the conversation you've been waiting for. With that being said, let's get into reframing planetary reversals as initiations, not interruptions. See, every few months, the astrology corner of the internet lights up like a siren. Mercury's retrograde, don't sign contracts, don't travel, back up your files. Well, that actually works. Venus retrograde, X is inbound, rethink your bangs. Saturn's retrograde, well, all of a sudden we're talking about karmic loops that you thought you finished. See, retrogrades have become the scapegoats of modern astrology. They're blamed for everything, from romantic confusion to dropped calls. And of course, people with retrogrades natally in their birth chart are left wondering what it all even means. See, I have 3 significant retrogrades in my birth chart, 2 of them in personal planets, and they've actually manifested quite uniquely and with big differences from what's given in the manuals. It did make more sense when I looked into traditional astrology, which is the basis for my practice, and I could see in there a lot of modifications that they would add in their exhaustive list. And from there, as I became more of a real practicing astrologer, I learned how it all actually mixes together. And that's the secret for if you have retrogrades natally in your chart, is there is a lot to that. That is just one word in a sentence. But here's the truth behind this trend. Retrogrades aren't really malfunctions in the cosmic machine, no. They're the mechanism itself, shifting into a different gear. Not breaking down, but breaking open. They aren't an aberration, they are natural. So that means more than anything, they're misunderstood because they interrupt a fantasy that we've all been trained to uphold. That time is linear, outcomes are clean, and growth always looks like forward motion. But we know it doesn't, not in myth, not in magic, not in everyday life. So let's step back and realize that retrogrades are when planets get closest to Earth. Let's be clear about the astronomy. Retrograde motion is an optical illusion caused by the relative speeds of planetary orbits and their differences with Earth's. But in that illusion, there is a deeper truth. When a planet goes retrograde, it's not retreating. It's getting closer to Earth than at any other time in its cycle. And this proximity matters. Retrograde planets aren't going silent. They're getting louder, brighter in the sky, more insistent, more personal. They're looking us in the eye and approaching us for conversation, the archetype itself. A planet in retrograde is thus more active, more intimate. It's not backing away from us at all. Literally, it's not. It's pulling us closer to its archetype. With Mercury, say, this brings the trickster, Venus reweaving desire, Mars stirring our inner fire, Saturn holding us in that loop until the pattern is seen and honored. So these aren't problems, they're initiations. Ultimately, retrogrades invite us to live truly astrologically, not just theoretically, to move with the rhythms and stand in cognizance of cycles and our place in the greater whole, to loosen our grip on forward motion and welcome the wisdom in reversal. They are not curses, they are conversations. And the planets, closer now than usual, are whispering things you could only hear through concentrated listening. So the next time you see a retrograde approaching, don't brace for the chaos. Breathe into the loop. Get ready for dialogue. Something sacred is unfolding, not despite the delay, but because of it. To show you what I mean, I'm going to get a little deeper into the 3 of the retrograde cycles that I mentioned in this video already. So Mercury retrograde is famous for its activation of the trickster archetype and for speaking in loops. So it's the most infamous of the bunch, of course, and because of that, the most misunderstood. Now, people treat it like a virus. Protect your tech, avoid new ventures, brace for chaos. But Mercury isn't just a messenger. He's also a psychopomp, a guide between worlds, a trickster god with winged sandals, slipping between meaning and miscommunication, between clarity and confusion. And he can bring you from one end to the other. Often before Mercury is retrograde, we are in a moment of confusion, and afterwards we find ourselves giving clarity. In that, we already see an opportunity, because it's the moment when he becomes a mouthpiece for the divine, whispering insights through the disorder. In my own life, Mercury retrogrades have a habit of syncing up with the process of recording, especially music. Rewrites, studio sessions, demos revisited. They're a lot less about miscommunication, more about a return to something essential. The refinement of thought, tone, delivery. So the message finds a truer form in the second take. You don't have to stop everything during Mercury retrograde thus. You just have to listen in a different register and be light on your feet, ready to adapt, much like Mercury is usually trying to teach us through his transits. Now, Venus retrograde is when desire is usually turned inside out. And this is a more rare one, every 18 months or so, but its impact always runs deep through culture, through personal lives, and it goes beyond just love or aesthetics. It's about the fundamental architecture of value and desire. What do you find beautiful? What do you believe yourself to be when reflected through the eyes of another? When Venus is retrograde, she is too closest to the earth. She disappears from the sky and is reborn as either a new evening or morning star, a celestial motif that ancient astrologers would watch closely. So this rebirth is personal, it's internal, and it's deeply, deeply changing. It asks us to reevaluate not only who and what we love, but why. So Venus stirs more than the vapors of attraction in us during this time. She forces us into acknowledging what we actually think we're worth. It's not always about exes coming back. Sometimes it's about a part of yourself returning, the part that once compromised too much or forgot what it really wanted. Now, Venus retrograde may bring nostalgic waves, aesthetic overhauls, or relational reassessments, but the real magic in Venus retrograde is being given a new opportunity to choose yourself again. Now, Saturn is retrograde roughly, I won't want to say half the year, but close to it. And this is often themes of sacred repetition. Now, Saturn retrograde doesn't usually come with dramatic headlines, but its work is no less profound. Saturn is the ruler of time, boundaries, and karma. You see, he builds really slowly. When retrograde, he demands accountability for what's been constructed already. This is part of the slow process, right? And it is an iterative process. So have you been doing the work that you owed yourself is what is asked during this time. Is the structure stable? Are you upholding your end of the contract here? Now, during Saturn retrograde, we always revisit lessons we thought we'd finished. But this isn't failure. It's the wisdom of iteration, of refinement. The loop returns because there's something more to extract, be it nuance, more integration, or more authenticity in ourselves and our work and our wisdom. Now, Saturn stations often coincide with major pivots, responsibility finally taken, commitments made or rejected in favor of what is deemed a wiser path. So it's not the time that things collapse. It's the time we see what can last. So if retrogrades aren't the problem, then what is? Well, it's expectations, specifically our cultural addiction to linear progress, quick resolutions at all cost. See, retrogrades interrupt that. They spiral, they revisit, they delay. And in doing so, they force us to sit with the process instead of thinking only in terms of the product. They are the no that leads to the real yes. The delay that reveals the deeper direction. The pattern that, when repeated, finally leads to lasting clarity. If you expect retrogrades to act like the direct motion of a planet, of course you'll be disappointed. But if you meet them on their terms, non-linear, inward turned, archetypal in nature, you'll find they're not setbacks at all. They're initiations into a deeper layer of the archetype itself. Another thing to understand about retrogrades is that the stations in a retrograde are activation points. For timing work, station degrees are crucial. When a planet stations either retrograde or direct, it hovers, it lingers, it marks the ground. Now, if it hits a point in your natal chart, it will be very deeply felt. Say Mercury stations on your moon, emotional intelligence becomes a lesson. Venus stationing on your midheaven, where your public image might reshape around your true values. Say Saturn stations opposite your Mars, that's a reckoning of energy, will, and responsibility. And that all leads to the conclusion that these moments are not random. They're thresholds that lead to the way forward, written into the architecture of your chart. Ultimately, retrogrades are meant to lead us to a conclusion. And for me, it's been that the path ahead is not straight, it's a spiral.